All right, well, I'd like to start off with one based off of one of my favorite shows that you were in, Fringe.
Yes.
If somehow there were a chance for, say, a one-off special, how would you feel about going back to Walter Bishop?
Well, I'd love to. He lives with me all the time.
Who doesn't?
He was a wonderful character to play. Almost, if you ask an actor for their ideal character, it would come up around somewhere like Walter Bishop. And to get to play him for 5 years was just wonderful, to be honest. Yes, I would think.
Great. I don't suppose you know if there's any possibility at all that might, or any talk or hints?
Nothing.
None.
Nothing. The further it gets away, I think the less likely. Although the show itself has exploded since it's gone to Netflix, and in Europe it's massive now as it's gone out there. So it's still bigger than ever, really. Yes.
What do you like best about attending cons like Dragon Con?
The reason I go to conventions is because it gives me a chance to start with, to meet the people that I quite often converse with, who may ask me questions via Twitter. But even before that, before going back a lot longer than that, it was a chance to meet people, really, and keep in contact. So that's about all, really. And sometimes to travel, which is, some of the European conventions. So it's really interesting.
I know you get back home to do some things in Australia, and of course you do things with the U.S. also. What do you find the biggest difference in the film industry
In Australia,
versus the United States?
well, it's very small, and it doesn't, in Australia, it doesn't have a unique market because Australia is such a small place. So it's hard to get things up there, whereas in America you've got a much larger footprint, and so in Australia we usually make films for about $5 million, whereas they're about $500 million here, and it's really hard. And then to get distribution for Australian-made things in our accent is quite difficult as well. So many of us come here, as you know. When they do it well, they do it very, very well, I have to say.
Well, The Devil's Playground seems to had done really, really well this past year.
Yeah, and I think it's got a great future ahead of it too,
Yeah.
as it goes international. But I enjoy doing that very much.
Yeah.
Yes. More questions? Yes, sir.
Mine is related to Arkham Knight. Were you approached to the role, and did you do any research? And
Arkham Knight was made over a very long time. I worked on it for over 2 years. Certainly at the beginning, there are talks with the producers and so forth about what they're looking for here. And you work with the producer the whole time. So there was obviously that going on. And as we went, we developed ideas as well as to how he would approach certain things, how the character, only minute shifts, sometimes minor adjustments in vocal quality, but that's natural over a long period of time. So it was a long journey, worthwhile, I believe. Fine show.
Speaking of voiceovers, what's Guardian Luna about?
I haven't done it yet.
Oh, you haven't done it yet.
I'll let you know later.
Okay. You are going to be part of that production then.
Well, I agreed to it some time ago,
Okay.
and I've seen that I'm there on IMDb, but I haven't heard anything else yet. But that's not unusual, particularly with voice work, because they'll attach an actor and then go away and make the game, which takes years. Happens in films as well. Attach the actor first because it helps to raise money.
I know it's been a year or two, a few more, since you filmed Lord of the Rings. Is there a particular memory that you have about that experience that always makes you smile when you think about it?
I adored working with all of them, but I loved the hobbits, the actual actors, and so I loved spending time with those fellows. And working with Billy Boyd, as I did at Knock Balance, was a joy because he's a beautiful man, and I got to do some scenes with him, and that's probably the sort of sentimental highlight for me. Working with Billy, particularly when he sang that song, that Martha Eating thing, and it was so beautiful, what he did.
Kind of on the flip side of that, is there anything that you think about and you just kind of groan inwardly about the process or what happened on set or anything like that?
Never what happened on set. It was a very fluid, beautiful thing. Process, not really. I mean, you work long hours, but really nothing compared to television. So it's. I have no negative memories of Ronald Reagan at all. At all. It was a beautiful show, but also just beautifully organised and produced.
On the subject of television, you're moving into the world of Sherlock Holmes on Elementary as his father, Morland, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us what kind of man he is? We've gotten some hints based off of conversation, but in the flesh.
Yeah. What I can tell you so far, and is that we already know this, he's an immensely wealthy, kind of secretive guy, English, fairly toffee English fellow, and he's got these incredible secrets which we slowly get let into, but even though, and Sherlock hates him, so he's not happy when Morland turns up. But Morland appears to be behaving in such a way as he's not as bad as Sherlock made out, and trying to find some common ground with Sherlock. That's all I'm going to tell you at this stage. I'm going to do that when I tell you next. But it's again, it's an interesting character. He's very, very solid, very quiet, very powerful fellow. It's fun to do.
What was some of the things you took away from Sleepy Hollow, and then what you enjoyed about Sleepy Hollow?
Can I have that coffee up here, please? Oh, sorry, I'm so parched. I don't know what this is. It's not that I was out the booze or anything. Sleepy Hollow. The first season I did with Sleepy Hollow was a total joy. And I was, when Alex Kurtzman rang me and asked me to do that in the first season, the arc was just delicious, and I simply couldn't resist. And then I got there, a lovely crew of people, and got on well with the cast. So that was all fantastic. The second season, as we all know, because it's been discussed very widely, wasn't as cohesive, shall we say, as the first, and we got caught in a bit of a loop where I don't know that people knew what to do with Henry. I don't know that people knew what to do with Katrina. And so this side issue was raised, which frankly the fans didn't like. They did not like it. And the fans spoke loud and clear and said, we don't like this. And in a sense said, get rid of Henry and Katrina, so they did. But it was in response to an audience, I think, saying, I don't think it was anything against me or and then they just struck through, they just got another season, and I really hope it worked well. In fact, Tom and I think Nicole are here today, can't wait to see them. But it's a reboot, and it needed to be a reboot. But shows often are, each year there's a reboot of some description, and there's certainly 3 or 4 of us that were prominent in the second season that went there. Orlando Jones being another one. who died many times in the second season. It's unbelievable, he just kept coming back. So anyway, that was difficult. It was difficult because I was conscious, also very conscious of where's this going. Yeah, and so was Katja. So please. Anyway, that was it. But I got a lot of faith in what they do coming back. What they learned in the early days was the story between Tom and Cole was the key to anything, and as long as they stayed within that as the main theory, as the main conceit, then it worked. And then they said, "Oh, we forgot. Sorry." Then we go back to do that again, which makes awful sense, doesn't it? And that's what I think they'll do. And Lindy Greenwood's still there from the last year's cast, and she's fantastic, Lindy. She's wonderful. And of the rest, I don't think we are. I think we're all gone. Are we all gone except her? Yeah. And they've got some very interesting, I'll look on Twitter to see what's happening. They've got some very interesting new characters coming in. So I can't wait to see what they do with them. I'm going to find out, I'll be asking Tom today all about it, you bet. Getting all the information, all the gossip. Because I've still got a lot of friends of the crew that moved from up to Atlanta to do it this year. Had to move house and families to get to move from Wilmington, where the tax incentive was taken away. So here they are in Atlanta. I can't wait to see what they do with it. A new showrunner as well, which kind of was part and parcel of resetting the story. Sad for the old one, but that's the way it goes in this business. It's brutal. Yeah. Yes. Anything else?
If you could only choose one thing, film, television, or stage, if you had to make a choice, which would you prefer?
May amaze you to know, I think I'd choose television. Most people would go the other way around. There's something about the pace of television and the fact that we have to think on our feet so much. I mean, you just get the script and you go and do it, basically. There's not too much guidance goes on. And you have to trust your first decisions, and you have to be prepared to work long hours, and there's something in my nature that loves all of that. Perhaps I'm getting a bit... With Fringe, we were doing the 22 episodes a year, and I was in every day and every day and every day. On this one, this is much more civilised from Anne May. Sort of wander in every couple of episodes and create havoc and leave again. But I think television's probably my first choice. I love the rest of them as well. I mean, I've done a couple of stage plays in New York recently, and I love doing that. And film happened. I did something in Australia a couple of years ago called The Mule, which was an absolute hoot. At the same time as I did Devil's Playground. The Mule was a little independent, and it was such fun, such silly, so bold. We Georgina Haig, of course. It was fun. Anything else?
Since you said that you prefer television, when you were approached for the role of on Sleepy Hollow, what drew you to it?
On Sleepy Hollow? Well, it was basically the description given to me by the executive producer of what the role was, and how he would contribute to the story. And the show had, when I got the call from him, the show had just gone to air one weekend, I think, because I know I was in Australia at the time, and we watched it. I said, "Oh, I know this show. There's Alex, and so-and-so did this one, and these are friends of mine, and Roberto, and let's have a look at it." This was how it went. And 2 days later, I got the call saying, "Will you join this show?" So I was very fortunate that I did. What was the question before that?
What drew you to the role?
Well, because
you
of
find
that,
interesting about it?
the description. And also working with Alex and Roberto again. I mean, they were the guys that with JJ created Water for me. And I hope to work with them again. I love them. Great blokes. So that made it very attractive to me. But also I certainly wasn't disappointed in that first year. I thought it was delicious. And I knew that what was going ahead. And a lot of people didn't. So I was able to put in all these little tiny things all the way through. Which even by the end of it, Tom had forgotten what I was going to do. So when he got the last episode, he said, "Well, what have you done?" Because he'd forgotten his carry on. Well, nasty, there's no one. There was a nice bloke. Dear old Henry. He got his revenge, didn't he? Goodness me. So that was what appealed. And I wasn't disappointed.
Neither were we.
Thank you very much. Anything else?
Is there a particular experience that you had that you might consider your biggest acting challenge that you had to meet?
Golly. Just in terms of the scope of it, the scale of it, Lord of the Rings was... And I was the last principal on board because I was only in a little bit of the second and third. So by the time I joined the set, there was already a lot of talk around social media, as it was then even. Not like it is now, but it was certainly the internet. And you suddenly realise this is massive, this thing. And so when I got there, I was quite anxious actually. And, I was put on the block in this huge, difficult role. Jennifer was a very hard role. So I was stuck out there in this trailer park full of trailers of all these actors and so forth, and there was this great big trailer. And putting on these clothes, and there was a knock on the door. Nervous. I opened the door down here. There's Viggo Mortensen. And I had met him, and he said, he's just said, I've just come to welcome you to our family. We've been looking forward to having you. That's an amazing gesture. Believe me, in this business, that is astonishing that man went all around to find me. He didn't know to say that. So if I speak of him with the greatest respect, that was the beginning of why. It certainly wasn't the end of why. Amazing man. I remember that. It's like a thing to do. I've tried to do that since with, when other new people come on shows I'm on, I think, I remember how lovely that was for somebody to come up and say hello to Carter. I try to do that now.
So you just mentioned how difficult Denethor was. How did you, this is probably too complex to really answer, but can you tell us some things about what you did to discover Denethor and to build him?
Well, I had to research the background of Denethor, which wasn't covered in the film, but it was in the book. So I had to go back and find out as much as I could, and then invent the bits in the middle to create a backstory. And that was a pretty interesting job to do, really. But particularly to then invent the middle pieces so that he's not just a hollow character, that he comes in with depth and background, even if you don't know what it is. So that was, that was tough. What was the other part of the question? Sorry.
That was
So.
mostly it. What kind of things you did to
Well, yes,
construct the
look,
character.
there are, so then, there are things we had to do. We had to determine exactly what accent we were using, which was an odd accent. It was what we would call RP, but it also had a North Country roll to it. So we had to be very careful when we were doing that. So instead of saying no to Denethor, it would be no. Comes from Sean Bean, who did it first, who has that slight northern twang. So that became invented as the Middle Earth accent. Interesting. And, I don't know, just difficulties. Apart from that, it was just really complicated. Language is very complicated, and also it was to do with that subject of father and son, the tragedy, and to be able to get inside. I had a son, so that wasn't so bad, but to get inside of the tragedy that would cause a father to respond that way to his son was really quite it was a tough journey. But I personally, as an actor, had to make that to try and understand, to be able to do what I did. But what a joy in retrospect.
It seems like you've enjoyed a lot of the projects that you've worked on. Which one would be your favorite, and could you explain why?
Many projects over the years, yes. Walter Bishop in Fringe was far and away the most exciting role I've ever played. I can't believe I got it. I can't believe I had it. Because he had the complete range of personality facets, which gave me fun to play with all the time. The writers and I had a very good relationship, and they would constantly throw challenges at me. So I was never bored, as it were, by what happened. And as we became closer, they would throw more and more ridiculous challenges at me, and I would say, yes, bring it on. And so that was a wonderful working relationship. And also the relationship I was able to establish with the other characters, particularly Josh Jackson. That was a unique father-son, which we worked really hard at from day one to make that as real and unique and touching as possible. From day one, when we first met, we said, let's make this special. And I loved Anna, and the rest of the cast just seemed such a gorgeous people. I adored them. So that was my best experience. Bit of water under the bridge since then, though, my word. I've worked with some very good people since then. But that one was the big one. Anything else?
When did you know that Henry's days were numbered on Sleepy Hollow?
I wasn't surprised his days were numbered. When Alex first spoke to me, he said, look, I see this as being a 2-season arc. How do you feel about that? And I said, that's fine. The nature of things is when you go to sign up in the studio, suddenly you're signing 7 years away. But the agreement that I had was 2 years. And that's the way it turned out. And I guess it became, they were still asking me if I would be interested in the 3rd season halfway through the year. And it's just madness as much as anything else. And then I think about 2/3 of the way through the season, we said, okay, let's run with this. And also about that time, they realised that that storyline wasn't working. So they had to move on. That's my representative doing that, getting them into the cinema label. People still take them into stages in New York, you know, despite all the warnings. They just take them in. Everyone says, please don't. I was acting there recently, one went off. I just had to freeze and stop. And you still see it all the time. Please turn your phones off. And then you okay. Beep, beep, beep. And people keep up without them. We won't go into that topic later. Oh, yeah. So, what was next? Ask another question. Yes, sir.
This is a little related to the Scarecrow thing. You played Scarecrow. Are there any other heroes or villains you really like to play? Obviously, with superhero films being really big right now.
Well, my voice is kind of flexible and also suits that type of thing. So there are quite often discussions around that. That's a matter of availability to some degree. Although voice work is easier than others, you can sort of slot in things. You're talking the gaming world, though. No, I haven't been approached for anything else.
Well, no. Is there one you'd like to play?
Oh,
either in games or an actual movie.
No. I don't know. I don't know. You tell me and I'll see if I can get it. I don't know, they're just fun. What we tried to do with Scarecrow, and I always find this interesting, is not to make them the cliche. That sort of cliche voice. So you make it as human as possible, just with that ominous thing sitting underneath it. I find that much more interesting than doing a straight monster voice. I don't like doing that. It's fun at parties, that's about it. If you're going to sit in the studio for that amount of time, you need to have a character to build and to understand to keep you going, which we did with Scarecrow. Has that gone really well, that show? Scarecrow, has that gone?
The video game, yeah.
Yeah.
I bought it. I do a Batman website, and we played it for a review, and I really like your performance in it. So yeah.
We had I don't know if you saw the photo you made on it. I was in London recently, and we did a launch of it, and we had the Batmobile there. Photos taken with the Batmobile. It was so cool. It was wonderful. Did a big panel with the geniuses behind it. It was such fun. I felt very honoured to be in their company. So clever.
Since you go to a lot of conventions, and so you see a lot of cosplay and people dress up, what is one of the favorite costumes you've seen that was just amazing that stood out to you?
Thank you. I don't see a lot of cosplay, and And until not so long ago, because I don't do as many conventions as I used to, and probably won't do many at all in the future, to be honest with you, just because of things moving away. I was at a convention, and I think it was somewhere this year, and I was about to speak, and I went into this big room, I'm trying to think where it was. It was in the UK, I think. And there was this thing going on stage, and it looked like a play, and there's music and this character acting out and sort of voiceover, and it was really good. And what on earth is this? I said, that's cosplay. And then, of course, I got the background of what cosplay was, and I thought it was very impressive. Then, of course, I got to meet some players later. It's become huge now. There's national competitions and people from all over Europe coming to places to play. Is that happening here too? Oh, isn't it fantastic, isn't it?
Yes.
That's wonderful.
It's
The
amazing.
fact that people can be involved so much is just brilliant, I think. I love it. But I don't know. I'll have to have a look and come up with a favourite character. Do you have a favourite?
Often like seeing Harley Quinn done. She's done so many different ways
Uh-huh.
from Batman, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of times. And a lot of the Lord of the Rings characters are done really well, I would say, at cons. So.
Really?
My
Yeah.
wife actually does Harley Quinn a lot.
Yeah,
Which Rings characters did they do?
You'll probably see a lot this weekend, so.
Yeah, which characters did they do? The Hobbits.
I
Oh, we
don't know.
are
They
Hobbits.
do all of
Shouldn't
them.
be
Name
take-
it,
shouldn't
name
be
it,
taking
somebody
you-
does it.
Actually, yeah, I would say all of them. You
Wow.
see almost all of them.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, you'll probably see an exceptionally good Thranduil from
Mm.
Hobbit. He was here last year, I'm pretty sure he's
Yeah.
coming back. So, yeah, it's,
The reason I
Many.
don't get to see them is because we sort of, the schedules, you know, what we're on when we come to these places. And so you might just get lucky, as I did then. Normally we don't walk through the room very much, to save any embarrassment, really. So I don't get to see much. You heard about all those actors dressing up and going through the rumours. I've never done that. But I get bold sometimes and wander through them. My poor mind is, don't do that, come back. Must you? Stephen, I won't do it, I promise you.
would you tell us about charities or causes that you support?
For years I've done that thing of you know, sending money every month for a child in Africa type thing. I became really disenchanted earlier this year with what I was doing, I have to say. When all was announced about the charities, the people that run the charities, skimming off the top, I felt like my world had exploded when that happened. I was so upset. And that was huge, that finished up being huge, and that was the cancer people here. What on earth can we do? And I know my wife's been going through the same dilemma because she supports a lot of charities. But if it's happening, if people are ripping us off and taking the money that's well-intentioned and living like millionaires, what sort of morality is that, for goodness sake? So we're at a stage now of trying to work out how do you contribute without becoming part of that machine over there? And we talk about this quite a lot at present. There's so much to worry about. With that in mind, we've got massive worldwide problems, and I don't know the solutions. I mean, we have this massive problem with people pouring out of water in countries and not being really happily accepted by people. It's horrific, frankly, to think that human beings just like us are drowning at sea because no one wants them and their little babies are drowning. It's an horrific thing to think about that no one wants them. It's a horrific thing to think that Australia, my country, is turning these boats around and not having any compassion for the people with their babies that have got mothers and fathers. People, not terrorists. Sorry, you got me going there. I don't know which way to go yet. There's many others, by the way, besides that particular one, but that's just the one that's on the top of my mind. This morning, having read something yesterday about what's happening in Australia. How do we do it? I don't know. There needs to be a new way of doing it, doesn't there? You know, and also, there's a lot of stuff called crowdfunding going on the internet at present, but then I wonder about the legitimacy of crowdfunding because of, you know, that thing comes in, well, how do I know? You know, I could start up a crowdfund saying, I want to do this. See what I'm saying? I don't mean to knock crowdfunding, it's wonderful, but my wife has done things like gone to places, she teaches English English as a second language, and she's gone to places and worked. That's pretty good stuff to do. She's thinking of doing another one now. But you can't always do that, and we get a bit older too. I don't know, but it's on our mind constantly.
We have time for one more quick question.
I guess I'll take it, and I'll go back to elementary and your role there. Is this a plan to be a regular role, a recurring role, or is it a guest spot?
No, I think it'll be 1 year. Yeah, this is very specifically, they said, well, you can be a regular for 1 year, was what they said to me. And that suited me beautifully. I don't see that there'll be any continuation, maybe down the track they might suddenly say, oh, would you come back and do a guest, as they do sometimes, even if you're dead, like on The Good Wife. I was dead there and got called back to a guest. I mean, I've got the same sort of very loose arrangement with Sleepy Hollow. Certainly Alex and I have discussed that if one day they want to, and I'm available to invite Henry back, well, it's possible. Who knows?
That answers another one of my questions.
There you go, double header. But it's kind of, whilst in theory it sounds beautiful, it's actually quite hard to link back in a dead character, without sort of having to retell the story that got him there. And that might be 2 years down the track. Do you want to do that? I don't know. See, although I'd love to work with Tom again. We used to laugh so much. Tom, particularly Tom, and we were sort of both theatre men and neither of us are Americans, so we used to have such fun together. So I'd like to do that. Maybe. Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so
I'd love
much.
to talk to you all this first thing in the morning.